I actually think that living is being able to be comfortable with the unknown. And I think that when you could actually arrive to that place, that's when you're actually living.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the smartest guys in the room. It's your boy O.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Big Just.
Yo, and our show all together is we're here to just redefine and reimagine what it means to be smart, right? And we're doing that by celebrating creativity and community impact. And we have a very special guest with us today.
Super excited.
We just got off the PJ from PR, you know.
Breaking up all the blues that we've got going on today. We clearly, we didn't call each other beforehand. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Johanna!
Really appreciated that introduction.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was dope.
Well, it's actually longer.
Yeah.
It keeps going. It keeps going.
It keeps
you
going.
guys brought out my trend.
Yeah, yo, like
really making me look good out here. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
the
listen.
name of the game, Joe.
Yeah.
That's the point of the podcast.
You the hostess.
Trying to make everybody look smart.
The guestess with the bestest. I
Yeah,
guess.
the guest is
I was about to say the hostess with the
bestest.
mostest, but you the guestess with the bestest.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, trademark.
I reached out to Joe because I always saw that she was really adamant about supporting like really local and minority-owned brands. Just showing love to a lot of people just kind of trying to realize their dream and get their name out there. I thought that was really impressive and super selfless of you. Like, it's not just like a repost. It's like, yo, I tried this. This is my experience. This is how it felt. I think that that's really awesome. And I think that coupling that stuff with, the fact that you have all this like wonderful experience, right? You work in media like the rest of us, and like you've had these opportunities to talk to all these really cool people, and also use that and use like all of your learnings and the way you support like these brands. I feel like it shows up in your work a lot as well. So I thought you would be a perfect kind of person to talk about. Hey, like this is kind of what I want to do with my power, with my influence. And yeah, I think.
And that's the thing, right? Community and like supporting each other.
Word.
That's that for us when we were looking over like, yo, who should we have on the show this season?
And I appreciate that. Like when Jeff told me that on the call, that was kind of the sell for me. I was like, oh, I totally want to be on this podcast. One, because y'all did your homework, so that's cool. Like you know what I do.
Yep.
But also the fact that you notice that that's something that I do and that I prioritize and that I value. So I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it was like the difference in products too, because I know that a lot of your work is tied into beauty and kind of
It started that way.
it started
Yeah.
and you kind of moved on to like more entertainment and kind of just general pop culture, but like I love the way that you talk about like kind of self-empowerment and kind of again realizing yourself. You do that with the brands, but also like a lot of your journey you kind of make sure that you take us as your followers along with it as well.
Oh my God, I love this.
Yeah.
You guys are like
And
making my eyes water.
But that's the whole thing. Like we want to be able, the same way you're telling these stories and like getting them out into the world, we want to be able to do the same thing. And hopefully through that, be able to inspire another generation or another Johanna out there that's going to be able to like say, you know what, I could do this also. So like that was one of the big things that why we wanted to make sure you were out here with us today.
And
I appreciate it.
to piggyback on, I think like a lot of your work has a lot to do with like you kind of, well, in some instances, you reflect on your identity and who you are. Like, and I think that those bring like just natural lessons to you. Like, what are some moments in your life that you kind of saw a pivotal decision that needed to be made, or like maybe if I could rephrase the question, like what do you think is the smartest decision you made? Was it one big one, or do you think it was like a collection of like very small decisions along the way that got you here?
I feel like the best and the smartest decision that I've ever made for myself has been investing in my mental, emotional, and spiritual health. To be very honest with all of y'all, I feel like it has literally transformed my life. I feel like it has transformed my relationships. I feel like it has not cured my anxiety, because I am somebody that struggles with anxiety, but I feel like it's gotten significantly better.
Yeah.
Like it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. I mean, like I was the kind of person that if you didn't know me, you didn't know. But if you knew me intimately, you were like, yo, Joe struggles with anxiety. That bitch got anxiety. Yeah, like I was just like a chronic worrier.
Same.
Yo.
I think it also comes from like being children of immigrants, right?
Yeah.
They're worried about everything.
A lot of it.
I mean, like, I grew up in the generation of like, check your seat at the movie theater because there might be a needle that has a little sign on it that says you were just like infected with HIV.
Bruh.
Yo,
Don't bite into the apple.
because, like,
That's the wildest,
because that
like, I remember
happened
that.
like
Bro, I love
time-
that.
One time in like the early 80s, and like my parents never forgot about it.
Yeah.
There used to
Right?
be people walking around
Remember-
with needles and pricking people.
With the,
Yeah.
with the
before that.
payphones, don't put your finger in the where it gives you the change in the payphones, because there could be like AIDS needles there. And
See
shit.
what
Bruh.
I'm
It's
saying?
like,
That's, but that's
Yo, those-
so evil. Like,
those-
Yeah,
to
I
for
know
you
that
to
is
think
fucking
like
evil.
this is what
Yeah,
I'm gonna do.
Like
I'm
I'd hate
Yeah.
to know what karma looked like for those
Oh, yeah.
people. Jesus.
I always felt like those were urban myths, like,
No, they were
like
from
the
our
gelatin
parents,
in
so
the
that we
apple.
wouldn't act up, right?
Yeah.
Like for someone like me, like if you put me outside is my fucking oyster, bro. Like I'm gonna pick up all the sticks, I'm gonna gather all the leaves, I'm gonna climb all the fences, like all of that stuff. Knowing there's people like me that exist,
Barefoot Just.
bro. There's
Animal
parents
Crossing,
who are
real
like,
life.
oh my god, what am I gonna do? Let me just tell them there's a needle in the payphone. Like I feel like there's also
You're
an
not
element
wrong.
of that.
There is definitely an element of that. There's like a manipulative element
Yeah.
too, right? Like I'm gonna tell you that this is really dangerous so that you don't try
Yeah.
it, but we wind up trying it anyway. But segueing back, I feel like it's helped me a lot because it's helped me to not only understand myself, but it's helped me to understand people.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this before we started recording, that one of the things that I've learned about people is that the way that people treat you is ultimately a projection and a reflection of the relationship that they have with themselves. So like if you're a bully, you're probably a bully to yourself.
Right.
You know, if you're a really kind person, it's very likely that you might be really kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I've noticed that the kindest people that I meet tend to be people that are kind and graceful with themselves.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
And the biggest assholes that I meet are always people that are very hard on themselves.
That is
So
very
in
interesting.
learning those lessons, I feel like it's just made life a lot easier. I feel like I just kind of flow with life now.
Now,
Yeah.
what was that point that made you say, you know what, I need to invest in myself. I need to like take this time to get my spiritual alignment right, my health alignment right, my emotional alignment.
Yeah.
Like what was that like moment that triggered like, all right, it's time.
So it wasn't one moment. I feel like it never is. If it ever is one moment for someone, I would love to hear that story. But I think for me, it was a series of incidents. I feel like in an odd way, I've kind of always been someone who has cared about like self-development and self-growth, and I just wasn't aware of the fact that that's what I was doing. So like, you know, I had my first therapist senior year of college. Just nobody knew because nobody had a therapist when they were in college, especially if you were Latino.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't want anybody to think that I was like losing my
Crazy.
shit. But I got a therapist my senior year of college because I was literally in and out of the ER with like gastritis symptoms. And I knew it was because I had so much anxiety about graduating during the recession.
Wow.
Yeah, because I graduated 09,
Yep.
right? I'm not young. Well, I am young at heart. So I graduated 09, and I was like, I'm not going to get a fucking job in journalism. And looking back, I think I was experiencing panic attacks, right? I thought it was heartburn because I had gastritis, but I think that shit was panic attacks. And I got myself a therapist in Astoria, and like it was like relaxation therapy / like cognitive behavioral therapy. And like I was able to take those tools with me. It carried me into my 30s, right?
It's really interesting, the fact that, number one, you got a therapist your senior year of college.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so at this point, you're 20, 21 years old.
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
And you're Latina, from here in New York. You mentioned the stigma behind getting a therapist. Like, okay, the anxiety hit.
Yeah.
And that's what was like, okay, it's time. But what got you over the hump to say, like, I gotta talk to someone? Because that's the thing. Like, I feel like within our community, it's not something that's very common for people to go out and have these conversations with people about how they're feeling.
It's really weird. So I had like a strange upbringing, because in some ways it was so fucking oppressive, right? Like between growing up Dominican and Christian, it was just so
That's a deadly
fucking
combination.
oppressive and restricting on so many levels. But at the same time, like my parents came to this country young. They were like of junior high school age. And I feel like, you know, in many ways they're so Dominican, but in other ways they're very like New York, and they're very American. And so I think, you know, I actually think that for the most part they did a pretty decent job in raising us. And one thing that I did learn from them is they were really big on couple counseling.
Wow.
And that was like,
That's very American.
that's
Yeah,
very,
that's
I mean, they
mad
got that
American.
from their white friends.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I just remember always being like, I was never weirded out by it, because there is something really, there's something really secure and stable about growing up in a two-family household where you genuinely know for a fact that your parents do fuck with each other. Like, it's not a front, it's not a performance. Like, to the point where as a kid, I remember we were all like, mom and dad like each other more than they like us.
Bro, that's
right?
crazy.
Like, they were just always on the same team, and like, they did spend a lot of time with us, but we also spent a lot of time with our grandparents and my cousins, because they always wanted to go on dates.
Yeah.
And I remember
That's
when I
why
was
it's
younger,
like-
I thought that was like so annoying. Like, why don't you want to like hang
out with
out
your
with
kids?
us? But
Yeah.
whatever, I get to chill with my cousins.
Yeah.
So because they did counseling, and it's ironic because neither one of them have ever had a therapist. And I tell them, I'm like, you know, it's the same tools that y'all have learned in marriage counseling. And so because of that, my mom very specifically has always been kind of good at holding space for us to communicate what we're experiencing. I think till this day, like, she's probably still the first person I go to when I'm struggling with something, even before the therapist. Right now, I currently don't have a therapist now. I have a life coach and a healer. Because it's just what I need now.
Yeah.
But like I think I usually kind of go to her first, because like that's the messy version of it. Like,
Right.
I'm so fucking pissed at this situation, and then she kind of like centers me and like holds space for me to kind of express what it is that I'm experiencing. So I feel like by the time I go to the expert, it's like organized,
Right,
and it's
right,
like, yo,
right.
this is what we're talking about. So I think because of that, and then also as stigmatized as it is in our communities and even in our families, I am the only person in my whole ass family who has had therapists and who has had life coaches and has done, you know, all this development work. I'm still the only person, even though everybody advocates for it. So even though nobody was participating in it, they did believe in it. So I do remember telling my mom, like, I feel like a lot of anxiety about graduating. I'm feeling like even like a little OCD about shit. I think I'm gonna see a therapist. And I don't remember there being a lot of push about it. I think she might even have helped me with the
Find
insurance,
somebody.
find
Yeah.
somebody. So that desire to be better and to develop and to heal and to understand myself has been there for a while. And then when I was 28, I came out of like a very long relationship. It was 9 years, and we were engaged, and it was just fucking terrible. The last 2 years, it was just really awful. And I remember like the day we broke up, I had already had like a call with a life coach that I was interested and actually we wound up having a podcast together, this life coach.
Oh, wow.
We embarked in a whole friendship. But I remember we had like the initial call because I was like interested in life coaching. And then like a week later, him and I break up, and I remember like hiring her. Like, hey, remember I told you I was engaged? I'm not anymore, but I'm gonna need support to get through it.
Now, what's for people who don't know me, what is the difference between a life coach and a therapist?
So there is a distinction. I don't even feel like a therapist basically helps you, and it also depends on what their specialties are, but I feel like they just kind of support you in whatever it is that you're struggling with. And depending on the therapist, some of them are more of a sounding board, which has never been my thing. But some of them actually, if you get like somebody that specializes in like cognitive behavioral therapy,
like action oriented.
yes, some of them are more action oriented, and they help you develop tools. But what therapists don't do that life coaches do that I really love is like life coaches kind of help you meet goals. So with the life coaching, I was like, I'm not really that depressed. If anything, it was more like, I just have goals from this point on. Like, I want to be able to date in 3 months. I want to be able to remind myself that like life goes on after a 9-year relationship and after ending an engagement. I actually want to advance in my career. I think that part of the reason why I stayed in that relationship so long was because I was becoming a little stagnant professionally, and I think I needed to feel some degree of stability, and I was like, I want to provide that for myself, so like help me with these things. And then I think the next thing was I cleaned out my savings in that relationship. I also was like making pennies. I was making like 35K. And as a writer, and so I was like, my next goal is I have to move back home because I can't afford to live on my own, and I'm not in the mental space to have a roommate. So I want to have an apartment in a year, so I need you to like help me be on track with my savings goals.
So the life coach literally is able to take your vision board that you've put together and help you action oriented and like, all right, we're gonna check these things off to make sure it actually happens.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry because this is another point that I'm very interested in, the spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
So it's not what we're probably thinking. No ayahuasca, no traveling to Mexico and being in a yurt or anything like that. What was your spiritual awakening experience?
I mean, that kind of stuff has made its way into my current spiritual journey, but that's not how it started.
Okay.
It started, I'd say like it was kind of happening at that time, right? Like when I ended that relationship, I was definitely like seeking something. Like I even went through a weird period where I was like going to church. And I say that's weird because I'm not a practicing Christian.
Person.
I don't think there's one way. I feel like I have a relationship with God and the divine. It's just, I'm not indoctrinated.
Yeah.
But I went through a period where I needed to feel close to God. I needed to kind of seek beyond like human support. So I was like going to Hillsong, that like really controversial church. For,
Wait,
like,
what is that?
Hillsong?
It's the ones that they dress up like
celebrities
rock
go,
stars
like
and
Justin
shit.
Bieber goes or whatever. And like, I'm not.
It's cool church.
I want to go.
Cool guy church.
It is cool church. I'm not getting into the controversy. That's not why we're talking today.
And they're not worth it.
But it kind of started there, and then I did start working with the therapist again. I think a year or two after that. So it was happening, but it really started happening in the pandemic. And I think a lot of people experienced that. And I think it's because the pandemic forced us to slow down and pay attention.
The pandemic was very it was like an existential crisis, like for a lot of people. For a lot of people who the world was just like, yo, stop right now, just cut it out, just whatever you're doing, that's it, you can't do it no more. And there's a lot of people who are just like, what do you mean? Like, no, I have to go to Starbucks and get this coffee, otherwise, what's gonna happen to me? Like, they just start going crazy. Like that should awaken a lot of those people, just like That's it, son. It just you just were affected like in a certain way by the pandemic.
No, you're spot on, because I feel like, especially if you are or were a New Yorker when that shit happened, I feel like for me, like looking back, I never want to live life the way that I lived life before the pandemic, because I feel like I lived on like autopilot.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
You think back and like, how did I do all those things in one day?
I don't know how the fuck I did that. And also, like, I don't think I really gave myself time to really sit with my thoughts, like outside of when I was preparing for a therapy session.
So you never gave yourself that grace. You never gave yourself that time.
And it wasn't even intentional. It was more like, I don't have time.
Yeah. But see, it's interesting, and I'm glad that you brought up like being a New Yorker, right? Like for so long, I feel like we tell ourselves and we tell other people like, this is just what it is. Like it's that hustle and bustle of being a New Yorker. Like if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to make it here, right? But then the pandemic happens, things slow down. I don't see a barber for 3 or 4 months. And now I'm over here like,
bro,
these things that are super important to me, my routine, it's gone now.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for you to kind of like start over. So
it was like a big refresh.
Yeah, like I feel like, how do I explain this? Like I would get up and my thoughts were consumed with what I had to do. Okay, I have to be here at this time. Like, you know, I have to take my supplements. Like I gotta make sure there's money on my Metro card. Like like there wasn't really time to like ever reflect.
100%.
How do you feel? Right? Like, you know, if I went through something that week, I think the only way I was really like sitting with it or processing it is if I either was going to share it in therapy or I was going to have to confront somebody, so I had to process, or you know, I had to make a decision, right? But outside of those scenarios, it was like, no, just go. Whereas with the pandemic, for me in particular, somebody who's always been like a workaholic, and has always had shit to do, right? Like there's always, I still struggle with to-do lists. I've gotten so much better, but it's like ridiculous. It's like 50 things on a fucking to-do list.
And it rolls over. The things that you don't get done, they roll over to the next.
Let me tell you something.
You feel so underaccomplished.
I feel such like an outcast when I hang out with you guys, because all you guys are fucking... I got a list for this. I'm anxious about this. I don't overthink anything, but I tend to overdo everything.
And that's why I love
That's an interesting.
And
wait, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Like, if I was to just come up with a simple plan right now, I'm pretty sure all of y'all will have so many thoughts, right? But I would just go and do my plan and probably do it times 10, just because like I don't have any of those fucking crippling fears or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the drawback. The drawback is that.
Conversation yesterday. We were literally talking about this.
There's a drawback for sure.
The drawback is that like it's a little too much for a lot of people, and like also like what I mean by overdo is that now I've taken some steps that I can't untake, right? Yeah. And however that looks, it manifests in mad different ways. But there's certain things where it's like, okay, now I've done this action, and I can't undo that action, right? Like I already spilled the milk, you can't unspill the milk, and that's where like it becomes treacherous, I guess.
Definitely are a decisive person for sure, like a very decisive.
I have a question for you, because I'm also getting just like very confident energy from you since I walked in here. Do you think that stems from having a really good relationship with yourself?
Yes, I think so. I think I'll preface this with saying that I'm an only child, and I think everything I've ever learned is because I've always been alone with myself for like 90% of like, I have like cousins and stuff like that, but like when you were talking about like I got to sit and think about stuff, like I've been sitting by myself and thinking about stuff ever since, bro. Like,
see, but that's the wildest thing. Like I'm an only child as well, and that's my problem is that all I do is think and have these conversations with myself.
But it's different, right? So like something just came up for me, and this was in my notes, so I just love how this kind of beautifully happened. Is I really believe that like the biggest fucking lie that we're sold into, like as humans, like the most harmful conditioning that we're given is that we need to be cruel to ourselves. And I think it's like the biggest waste of time, because I feel like when we're cruel to ourselves, we waste time, we overthink, we procrastinate, we don't do the thing, and we actually make our lives a lot harder. But when
crazy.
when we're like him and we have good relationships with ourselves and we're kind to ourselves and we practice self-love and self-respect and we honor and celebrate ourselves, we're not entertaining those dark conversations and those dark narratives and those dark stories that we tell ourselves.
But that's a hard thing,
oh,
right?
It's so
like
it's
hard. So hard to get over the negative talk, the self-negative talk.
It bleeds into so many different facets of your life,
and you don't realize that you're doing it.
So think about like what we just talked. We're all working professionals here. We all are career people.
Yeah.
Like we show up at work, and now there's this whole nother like series of obstacles that we don't necessarily face in the same way in our personal lives or in like our friendships. You know, we have to deal with like imposter syndrome, right? Because you show up, you got a Bronx accent, you're like, oh, what? Like, everybody's like, why this guy talks like this? And then you kind of have to go through this whole nother thing. So it's almost like the monkey on your back is like, it comes dressed differently every time.
Yeah.
If you're going out to like do something that's a little bit more in a place of comfort with your friends, maybe not so much, right?
Yeah.
But like if you're going to this place where you're like a figurative ocean where you just got to take a leap and like get into it, every kind of challenging thought that you may have had at some point will rear its ugly head. I think the importance is recognizing it, because I think you can't eliminate that voice in your head that tells you like that it's being mean or like it's being cruel, but I think you can manage it and you can like can disagree, and I think that's what people don't like. It's not you. Like you like you hear it in your head and you hear the voice in your head, but that doesn't mean that it's you. It's like it's your ego telling you all this bullshit.
And it also like initially doesn't come from us, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a whole process, right? So it's like it starts with what Jess was saying, like having the conversations with yourself, right? Sitting with your thoughts, what are they? Then facing them, right? And then once you face them, then you have to work through them and you have to heal with them. And I always suggest getting professional help to do that, because nobody should be doing that shit by themselves. Yeah. And then once you arrive to that place, then you start creating tools for yourself. So for me, I hate mornings. I'm a night owl. I'm like the coolest person at night.
Yeah.
In the morning, like before 10 o'clock, don't talk to me. Don't text me. Don't expect me to respond to anything. And that's when my negative self-talk usually happens, is in the morning. Yeah. So it's usually like the second I get up, it's like, fuck, you hit snooze. Your day's fucked up. Yeah. Right? It literally starts there.
It's that
moment.
Wait, what? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Nah, it's true.
Bro, I'll be snoozing my phone until I'm late. Then I'm like, oh, I guess I'm late to work. They got to deal with that.
See, like I wish I could be that.
But
they got to deal with that,
bro. So for him, it sounds like it comes really naturally. But for me, because it doesn't, that's where I would create the tool. Yeah. And the tool would be like, no, bitch, you needed 5 more minutes. Yeah. Oh. Let's get to the shower. Like, it's gonna be good. You just needed 5 more minutes.
So on the topic of tools, like this just like popped into my brain because you're talking about a tool you created for yourself. Going back to how you like immediately knew I was confident. Like I definitely
got that energy.
I don't know, but I will say one of the tools I use that I guess shows that I'm confident is that whatever I do, I will challenge the next person to do it. And if you can't do it, then you can shut the fuck up. Yeah. Right? Like, so if you're telling me like, yo, do this, all of that, like, I'm like,
this
yo.
This is how you got to do this. This is.
I'm like, okay, listen, Mr. Director person, I want you to come, put my shoes on, and do exactly what the fuck I just did. Yeah. And if you can't do that, then you can shut the fuck up.
No, really.
You can go fuck yourself, right? And I don't see that as confidence. I just see that as like, bro, like
acceptance.
We all fucking humans. So what the fuck are you like? Why are you sitting in that place talking to me like I'm some other thing, or like, you know what I'm saying?
It sounds to me like you have never dealt with like imposter syndrome.
No, that's because I'm an artist.
I mean, you probably have.
Yes, I'm an artist, so like my imposter syndrome is like, bro, I can't fucking draw. What the fuck? Like, it's a lot of that. It's like,
and you've been putting your work up for critique for so long that like, it kind of that.
I think when it comes to like, I don't have imposter syndrome when it comes to like a corporate world because I fully like am not committed to that bullshit. I'm not committed to like the email shit or like code switching. Yo, like like I said before, like I pull up to work. I pull up to work. If I smell like weed, I smell like weed. If I smell like cigarettes, I smell like cigarettes, right? If like I'm gonna come to you and I'm gonna talk to you the way I'm talking to you right now. Yeah. On Zoom, I talk like this. On the phone, I talk like this. On my emails, I type like this. You know what I'm saying? Like so. I don't know. I
feel like if I met you in a work setting, like I had to go into the office and we're having like a one-on-one meeting and I smelled you like drenched in weed, I feel like I would actually have like so much respect.
You'd be like, yo, you got some on you?
And like this
yeah, like
is working,
I'm very much of like, yo, I came here. Like I'm here.
Yeah.
Like however I'm here, but I'm fucking here. I showed up, and now we got to get to work. Like whatever's happening, like I don't give a fuck if the sky is red, bro. If the sky is red, that's not my problem. I'm here to do the things that we all came assimilated to do, right?
Yeah.
You especially like in a corporate environment, it's like, bro, what you're doing is renting my time. So that's what I'm giving you, right? I'm giving you. You're renting my time for my salary, so I'm gonna give you that, right? I'm not gonna give you anything else. I'm not gonna give you my humanity, because that's not what you're renting. I'm not gonna give you like any more of my time, because that's not what you're renting. And I'm not gonna give you like a clean smelling, like I smell like Febreze, because that's not what you're renting, bro. What you're renting is me as I am, and I come to work smelling like weed.
Piece we can argue a little bit.
But this is the difference. He's an artist. He's a creative.
Yeah.
I think that when you're outside of that world in a corporate setting, like, you don't necessarily have those luxuries to be able to be like, I'm gonna walk into the office smelling like weed.
I'm a creative too, and I ain't walking into an office smelling like weed.
Right.
It's the functions too. Yeah. I would say, like, I think that you work in a corporate space, but like I think our functions are more like client and like external facing, whereas Just is not necessary. I think maybe that might be a factor.
Oh, you're a little more behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Just taking it back to the pandemic, the spiritual awakening, and all of these other things that you started kind of confronting.
Right.
How did that translate into your career, into the things, into your writing, into the subject matter that you actually like cared about and wanting to pursue versus like, I'm working for a company and they're telling me that I got to do this? Like, how did your career kind of shift during that time period?
So during that time period, I had lost my job and as an editor, and the lease was also up too in a Harlem apartment I shared with two friends. So I kind of felt like I lost everything. Like I lost my job, I lost my money, I lost my place. I'm back with my parents in my 30s. So it kind of felt like rock bottom at moments. I think it would have been way shittier if my peers weren't also losing their jobs. I think because it was such a collective experience that helped a little bit, but it still felt like rock bottom. And so I did need to kind of search within. And that's what I'm saying. That's kind of where it started, where I had to kind of sit with my thoughts and ask myself, like, who is Jo when she doesn't have a job? She's not working for like a media company. Like, who is this person? So without having a job, I was kind of able to just like tap into the essence of who I am. And I was like, I'm a creator and I'm a storyteller and I'm a writer, but I'm also someone who really likes to connect with people. I really feel that everyone on this planet has a purpose. I think that not everybody discovers what it is because we get so caught up in the societal distractions that are meant to distract us so that we wouldn't fulfill our purposes. But we all have a purpose, and we all have like a sacred contract within this human existence that we're supposed to live out.
I love that.
And I think I've kind of always known that, but I think it was during this time that I started to understand that my purpose is not tied to a job. Like I have my purpose, and it's to share stories. I'm supposed to share people's stories, right? I'm supposed to get those stories out there. And like, you can argue that like, what kind of purpose is that? Is that you're not changing lives? I think I am, to be honest, because, I know one of the questions was storytelling, but I'm just gonna get into it now. I think storytelling is really, really important.
Absolutely.
I think it's always existed, but I think it's only been during this social media period that it's really getting the respect on it that it really deserves. And I think for me, it's always been about storytelling, because even though I've always been a writer since I was a kid, my relationship with writing initially was for myself. It was to help me understand and process my feelings, and oftentimes it was to process and understand my feelings so that I can go and communicate it to my parents, because I didn't have the verbal language. So I used to write my parents letters. Like, yo, that was fucked up.
That's
you're
crazy.
Wrong just because you're a parent.
I used to do that too, but it was like when I was as a little kid, when I would get in trouble, I would write these letters. And then I would slide it under my mom's door.
Oh my God,
tell her,
I used to do that
I was
too,
like, yo, I'm so angry, I'm so mad. And like I was like 5 years old. Now my daughter does that. My daughter does that, but she does it to like get attention. Like if I'm in the bathroom, she would be like, she'll slide a little note under the door like,
"What you doing?"
You better pay attention to what's written in those letters.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's
and I love that because that form of expression, number one, just feeling like this is how I'm gonna communicate. This is how my parents I'm gonna get their attention this way. You know, so okay, so continue on.
So not to go too much on a tangent, but like that's where my relationship with writing started, right? But the interest in storytelling developed when I finally decided to switch majors and study journalism because I was studying advertising. I wanted to be like Mad Men. I wanted to be a copywriter.
Yo, I still don't get Mad Men.
Really?
It's a great show.
It's a great show. It was a fantastic show.
Too many white people doing too many white things.
I mean, I get that.
Don't get it.
That always triggers me.
But even the lifestyle, the Mad Men, I fell in love with that. Like I fell in love with the Mad Men.
I guess so. I'm like, because they're all buttoned up and fucking
during that
swiveling
period.
Whiskey and shit.
I mean, they were running shit last night.
The skinny of it is that he's the worst.
Okay.
Don Draper's the worst person.
I think
fast forward.
But he has, his moment of enlightenment at the very last episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it, once I switched majors, I think I just got really frustrated with the content that I was consuming around Latinidad. Because I was like, you know what? Like, at least the way that I grew up, like in my families and in my communities and all the Latinos I grew up around in Queens, I felt like everybody was pretty dope. You know, like I felt like everybody was like a good person, and the women in my life were like so warm and like kind, and everybody was kind of doing their thing professionally. And also I come from a privileged position in that like my dad's a dentist. So I'm like, why is all the content that I'm consuming, like Latinos are fucking traficantes and like, drug dealers and sluts and gang members and maids, and like that's actually not what I'm seeing in my actual world. And even though even though that's not what I was seeing in my world, like I don't care what anybody says, like TV, film, media, it does affect the way that we perceive ourselves.
Absolutely.
It really does. And on a really grand level. So for me, it was like, I'm seeing so many examples of like Latinos being able to fucking be powerful. And yet I'm not seeing that reflected in any of the content that I'm consuming. How can I,
bridge that?
be part of changing that, right? And I had a professor that encouraged me to go into women's like lifestyle and women's magazines, and may he rest in peace. I always shout him out, and he passed away this past month.
Oh wow.
Michelle Marriott. And
our condolences.
I always used to thank him. I think like annually, I would like DM him and be like, you know what? Thank you so much for telling me to go into women's magazines, because I was initially very skeptical and even offended, because as in college, I was so rebellious. I was like, yo, fuck magazines and fucking 10 ways to lose a guy and fucking shoes. You think that's what we care about? So I was
fuck
like,
you, Marie
fuck
Claire.
I'm working at the Village Voice, okay? That's where I'm fucking going. And he was like, like if you have a problem with these magazines, like why don't you go there and like create the change? Why don't you create stories that, reflect Latina experiences? And I was like, okay. So I started in beauty and style, and that's when I realized like, okay, I think this is like my mission. I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So segueing back to the pandemic, I realized I don't need to be tied to a job to do that. And I did it freelancing. I did it doing IG lives. I did it working with brands. Like I reached out to Instagram and I was like, yo, y'all don't do anything with Afro Latinos on Black History Month. Like, what's up? Instagram. Right. So I was like, I could totally do this for you. I can produce it. I want $5,000 for it. I didn't get $5,000, but I got like $3,500 because they were like, well,
that's because you only asked for $5,000.
Yeah, I know. Asked for more. But like, you know, that's when I really started like stepping in my power, and that's also I was working with my life coach, who's still my current life coach. Shout out Zeta Rivera. She's also like my healer. And I started, you know, messing with like energy sessions and Reiki sessions, and just like really allowing myself to be still and prioritizing meditation and journaling and just getting to know myself and understanding the power and the capabilities that I actually have versus like succumbing to the lies and all the conditioning that society tells us we are.
You this has nothing to do with anything, but do you ever get into a conversation with someone? It's like reading your zodiac when you're like, wow, this is really speaking to me.
#identify.
Yeah. So literally everything that you're saying, I feel is resonating with each of us in a different type of way.
Let me ask you something. Yeah. When it comes to self-love, do you look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself?
Do you want me to be really honest about what that looks like for me?
Absolutely.
Every morning after I take a shower and I brush my teeth and I'm awake, before I get dressed and I start oiling my body, I look in the mirror completely naked and I'm like, you're that bitch.
What about y'all?
That's how I start my day.
Phenomenal.
Do y'all ever tell yourselves y'all love yourself in the mirror?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big fucking thing. For me, like, I'm like, yo, fucking, I love you guys.
You do it every day?
Every fucking day. I look in the mirror and I fucking converse with myself and I hype myself up.
I think one thing I've adjusted, because before I used to do like I'd be like, yo, you're the shit. Like, I always say this thing, and you made this comment about like, I realize that I'm like, I don't even need to be it. And that's the way I feel. It's like, yo, it's a party over here. You either come hang out, there's gonna be happy songs, there's gonna be sad songs, there's gonna be all types of shit. There's perreo, there's gangster rap, but we got it all here. Like, it's a range of emotions.
Right.
But I changed from like being like, yo, you the shit. Like, yo, or like, I'll be like, yo, anybody ever tell you beautiful, bro? Like, in the morning, but then I'll be like, I say like, yeah, I'm beautiful. I'm this. Like, usually what I
love that you switched it from you to I.
Yeah, I think that was a conscious decision, because I think that, again, and we were talking about this earlier, like, that voice that you hear in your head sometimes isn't like, it's your conscience for sure, but like, it's not you. It's sometimes telling you shit that you don't believe.
Sometimes it's the little devil and shit.
Conditioning.
So you have to kind of say, no, this is what I think. I think that I'm a cute ass motherfucker. I think that I'm a fun time. I think that I like.
That's my routine in the mirror every day. I'm like, yo,
I'm soaking up all of this. I'm soaking it all up.
Oscar, do you not have this routine that the three
of
us have?
I'll
be like, yo,
are you curious about trying it?
I think that I have always been curious about that. Like, I've heard about doing things like that. It feels strange to me. It's like it's like taking a selfie video and then or taking a selfie. It feels strange to me.
I feel like it doesn't feel strange because I'm alone.
I'll just
like there's in the mirror, I'll just be like,
That's the thing. You feel like maybe, and let me know if I'm off base, but it feels like some Truman Show vibe when you try to like say this shit to yourself. You're like,
wow.
Bro, like,
I feel like it's like am I bullshitting myself right now?
But
like,
you said something earlier.
And again, I could be so off.
No,
maybe
you're probably
you don't
not going
fully
to
believe it yet.
That, and I want this is.
But you don't. I didn't. I for certain.
I didn't.
I still like be like, oh, like, not today, bro. You gotta get a lineup. But like,
this is
not
somehow
today.
This is somehow gonna become my therapy.
But you said,
this podcast.
But you said something about how you make voice notes for yourself,
yes.
right? That's where I wanted to do that. I wanted to write, and what I tell you, writing has been my thing for a long time. But when I tell you that if me writing something down on a paper, like, I have this like completely insane, irrational fear that someone's gonna take this thing and like read it.
Oh my god!
And that's why I don't like leave evidence.
This group
and shit.
freaks me out because I feel like it's just a whole bunch of mirrors. I recently shared with my friend Jackie that I'm not that honest in my journaling because when I was younger, my mom used to fucking read my diaries. So I'm always like, I don't know, it could get lost or in a move, somebody could
get
pick
misconstrued.
It up.
Like,
so there's only so much I put in the journaling. So when I really, really want to hash it out, I take out an iNote that eventually gets deleted. or I do the recording thing. And if it's something that I think is going to get me in trouble at some point, I'll eventually delete it.
So you're recording this and then you're listening to it again later.
So, yeah, and some people like, well, in writing, this is my therapist. She's like, yo, you could just write it and like burn it or throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, but it's the act of like
getting it out,
getting it
out, facing it, and working through it.
Because otherwise, you'll be here all day answering all these questions, scenarios, especially when you don't get like it's a interpersonal interaction or interpersonal challenge, and you don't get the closure or the response or whatever, like, you know, it takes two to tango for anything, not just like romantically, but like it takes two to tango for any type of interaction. And if somebody leaves you like kind of halfway, pardon, but like dick in your hand, you're like, all right, like how does this feel for me? And you start like kind of thinking that you're the only one in the room right now. So like now you're the issue.
Right.
That's what it automatically starts kind of guiding you there. But you have to kind of make that conscious effort to be like, nah, bro, like it's a party here. Like you didn't show up, that's your bad. Like,
It really helps set the tone of the day.
Butt ass naked, bro, just go.
In the mirror, yeah.
When we're off,
do your best.
When we're off recording, I'll
let me tell you something.
I'll share a little more.
I'll OD play with my ponytail in the mirror, and I'll be like fucking. I'll talk to my hair, bro.
Yeah, you got lavish ass hair though, bro.
I do it, but it doesn't matter, son. It doesn't matter, son.
Yeah.
Like, you just gotta hype yourself up.
You gotta find the things about you.
You gotta, you gotta be like, yo, good job yesterday. Even if you didn't do a good job yesterday, you just gotta be like, yo, fucking keep it up.
I did that this week.
I like that. I'm gonna add that one.
Preparing for like because we have one today and we have one tomorrow. Like preparing, I was like, yo, good shit. Like knock this out, knock that out. You were supposed to do this, and like you feel sometimes you wake up and you're like, fuck, bro, like. It's already off to the
dread.
See, that's why
I got like 10 things right now.
That's why I'm a night owl, because like I don't know why I still do this to myself, because this has been like literally since like school. It was like, no, we're tired, we're going to sleep, we'll think better in the morning, we'll get it done in the morning. It doesn't get done in the morning. Yeah, Every now and then, if I have no choice, it'll get done in the morning, but I got to do it at night when I'm still like energized. So even like prepping for this episode, I did it last night, and I was so happy that I did it last night, because I woke up ready and prepared, and all I did was, while I was getting ready, diffusing my hair, figuring out my outfit, I just heard my recording out loud, my responses to all the questions, so that it would just kind of be stored in my subconscious. Yeah.
How does all of this, like the spirituality and all of, like, how does this permeate into your work? When you're having conversations with artists or creators, like, how does that come to life, or does it at all?
Like, it totally
within your
does.
Conversation with them, because that to me is going back to, you know, telling the stories, especially of Latinidad. Like, do you feel that you're telling a story from a very different angle that is like? Do you feel like you're telling the story from a different angle that hasn't been told, essentially?
I mean, that's always the goal.
Right.
But, you know, answering your question more directly, yes, it does permeate into my work, because like I said, like my current job is not my purpose, but it's on the path, right? It's I like to see jobs almost like little missions or clients or whatever, right? This is where I'm supposed to stir up some change right now. So I do put my all in it, and I always have that like sacred contract, purpose, mission in the back of my head, even when I'm figuring out what the content's gonna be. And I take it into every single story, and I try to encourage my writers to do the same. So, for instance, my process for interviewing it's a process. So it's like, you know, for instance, if I'm going to be interviewing a music artist, let's start there. If I'm familiar with the music artist, or I'm actually a fan, that helps, because I already have like some stored information in my brain. But regardless, even if I do know the artist well and I'm a fan, I act like I don't know anything. And I start from the beginning. Like, let's read all the bios and all the articles. Let's go on YouTube. Let's see how they interview. Let's get, you know, let's get a glimpse of like how they communicate in interviews. Are they somebody that like you can tell they need to kind of be, they need to feel connected to you? Or are they like, you know, a lot more like robotic in the interviews or whatever, like what's their style, right? So my thing is, I don't need to relate to them and they don't need to relate to me, but we do need to connect.
Right.
So I do need to find a way for us to connect, because that's the only way that you're going to open up and you're going to give me something a little different from what you're giving the other outlets. So that's part of the process, is like the research, the prep, the questions. I look at, if it's been covered already, like, okay, I'm going to do it a little differently. They didn't go that deep with the questions. And then honestly, the next part of it is, I'd say it's probably like my manifestation process. Sometimes I don't do this, but I try to pray before I interview anyone. And I basically ask God to guide me, and to just help me to ask the right questions and to set the environment so this person feels comfortable sharing. Because again, going back to purpose, it's not about me and it's not even really about my job. It's about the purpose. What is the purpose? I believe that I'm here to share people's stories and to bring it into the mainstream and to change the way that we're represented. And not just for us, right? It is for us, because we need to be reminded as Latinos and as people of color. We need to be reminded of who the fuck we are. We're fucking powerful. We're awesome. We're magical. We're capable of anything that anyone else on this planet is able to do, right? I am no less, I'm not less intelligent. I'm not less capable. I'm not less creative. I'm not less important than a white man, by no fucking means, right? So we need that reminder, because when we're awake and we're reminded of who we are, that's when we can really step into our power and like create shit and make change. But I'm also letting the rest of the world know too, right? So it's for us first. I do it for us first, and then I do it so that the rest of the world can wake up and be like, oh shit, look at the Latino community.
Look, obviously you've gotten to a place where you've been able to self-motivate. You're very clear on your path.
Yeah.
Throughout your journey, throughout your personal journey, career journey, has there been like anyone who inspires you? Like when you think of like, who's the smartest person you can think of that inspires you? Or like, I think you mentioned it before. I mean, I don't know if it's your mother or your father, like you bounce ideas off of, but who is that smart person that inspires
So there
you?
isn't one person. So I have to start off by saying that there isn't one person. I am someone who very intentionally surrounds myself with really smart people. I'm usually the dumbest person in the room, and I feel very secure saying that. I feel very secure saying that, because I feel like I learned from people, and that doesn't mean that I'm not smart myself. Right? I'm smart in my own way. But if I had to pick one person, and I'm picking her just because I gotta pick one person, I would probably mention my friend Brianna. And it's not because she's like a creative director like at the top 5 tech companies. She's brilliant. She's like getting an award. She created a product at her job. It's like a new invention. She's also Latina. She's Black and Puerto Rican.
She invented something?
Yeah.
You should have started with that.
I can't. I don't think I can say it yet. I think they started like the media.
Amazing though.
The media.
That's crazy. Yeah, incredible.
Shout out to Brianna. Come on the show.
Yeah,
but no, you guys should totally have Brianna on the show.
We love you, Brianna.
But actually, the reason why I select her is because since the beginning of our friendship, we've probably known each other like maybe 8 or 9 years at this point. I've always admired the way that she has always been able to create tools for herself. And she created tools for herself at a time when we didn't even use that kind of language, right? And we're saying tools very specifically now. Let's keep it real, because of Stutz on Netflix, right? But we weren't really saying that, and that's also a term that's like very much associated in like mental health and healing spaces, right? We weren't talking like that like 8, 9 years ago. She didn't even call it tools. I don't even know if she realized they were tools. But anytime she was going through something really hard and it felt like shit, and she knew that she didn't want to ever have to revisit that experience again, she would create a tool. And then she would go so far as to like create it in an art form, right? So, and I can't even say, like I would say she would create these coping mechanisms, but they're not coping mechanisms because coping mechanisms are not necessarily healing or effective. I think as humans, like blocking trauma is a coping mechanism. That doesn't mean that it's healthy, right? Tools lead us to be healthy and to make healthy decisions. So she would create these tools and like create it in a form of like an illustration or a stop motion video or like a video.
Interesting. I'm very much the same way.
She's an artist.
Yeah, whenever I get tight, I just draw.
Or a documentary, right? or storytelling. She's a writer too, so she would storytell a lot. So much so that like sometimes when I would be stuck in my anxiety spiral, she would create stories for me. There's like some angel story somewhere downloaded on my iCloud that she like basically created for me. And they're essentially analogies.
Right.
But it was her way, it was like almost like a gift. Like, yo, I see what you're dealing with. I dealt with that shit last year. I created this tool for myself so that I can get through it. I'm sharing it with you. And it was just so brilliant. And then she took it to the next level and then she started sharing these illustrations and these videos and essentially these tools so that other people can learn. And she would present them in such a digestible way that it would be like, oh shit, like I can do this. You know what I mean? I think she's just so brilliant. She still does it. I feel like she taught me how to create tools. I feel like she needs a fucking podcast just on how she creates tools.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the smartest individuals in my life.
Well, shout out to Brianna.
Shout out to her, bro.
Shout out to Brianna.
Sounds like a wonderful person.
So let me ask you something. What would be like the advice to give to yourself so that you can be like a better version of what you are right now?
I think I would tell my younger self that none of the things that are crippling me or bringing me anxiety or are making me feel insecure are real. None of them are real. They're all societal conditioning and they're all man-created. I actually had a conversation with somebody about this recently that was like, they were like, you know, because it is what it is. Some things are what they are. And I'm like, that's actually not true. I think that we grew up being told that. And like, you know, very specifically as like a Dominican woman, like one of the things that I was told it is what it is like curly hair is bad hair and dark skin is unattractive. And I remember like, I was really blessed that my parents were never part of this camp. So I'm sure I've dealt with degrees of self-hate and anti-blackness, but not so much so because like my parents were like, don't talk like that in front of the kids. But like when I would get my grandparents and they would say shit like that, the response, I would always be like, abuela, like how can, but why? Why is lighter skin better? Why is straighter hair better? Why is being skinny better? Because it is what it is. That's how God created it. Like, and that's not true. And I think that one of the benefits of being part of this generation is that we have education and we have information. And it's like, actually, no, that started because of colonization. We are awesome. So we can like remind ourselves of that.
Like, what advice would you give? Like a gem of advice to like whoever is in the same kind of predicament, or to, I guess more broadly, to somebody who wants to realize like the same things that you have realized so far?
I really think that for you to arrive to this place, you have to first invest in yourself. So I think you come to me, you ask me for any advice, whether it's professional advice or it's relationship advice or it's, you know, romantic advice, anything, it starts with investing in yourself first. Because I think that when you're able to understand yourself and you're able to operate from a place of like self-love, self-respect, self-appreciation, you're a better person in general. So you're better in relationships, but you're also like better at your work. So like even you were saying, you were like, yo, I perform better at work when I'm like wearing whatever the fuck that I want because I'm comfortable and I'm being myself. You can't really be comfortable and you can't really be yourself if you don't know who you are and you haven't like explored that deeply. You know, so I think that would be my biggest piece of advice.
It's such an existential comment, right? Like, because I think there is no timeline or point where people can figure out who they are.
No,
like,
I think we're a doctor. You always learn.
It's a process, right? Exactly.
You know, I ain't sitting on my high horse. Like, I ain't saying that I got it figured out. I feel like I just woke up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I want to wake up.
I'm
trying to wake up.
Everybody wake the fuck up,
I feel like
a little bit. Joe, we've talked about so many amazing things. I'm feeling, honestly, this conversation has me very, very motivated.
Yeah. Oh, that's
inspired for sure.
Yeah.
What's next for you? Yeah. What's next? Like, what are you trying to do? What's your next goalpost?
I feel like I blush every time people ask me this because I've been getting asked this a lot, right?
We're so excited to know.
Yeah,
no, I've been getting asked this so much where I'm like, okay, universe, are you sending something my way soon? Honestly, I'm like kind of just like enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying where I'm at, being present with where I'm at, because I feel like in the past, I've always been kind of strategic about figuring out next moves, and I haven't always necessarily been present, or even present with like my blessings. Like where I'm at right now is a blessing. You know, what I'm doing for a living is a blessing. This mission is a blessing. So I'm just being present with it, and you know, learning the lessons that I'm supposed to learn while I'm here. There are things that I want to do that I'm trying to attract into my life. So I know at some point I really want to work in music. But I know I want it to very specifically be storytelling. And I know I want it to be around Latin music because part of my mission is to better my people. So I know that's something that I'll do. But I know I also really want to write a script. I haven't done it because I'm not decided on what the story is yet. And also there's a part of me, I feel like part of my mission too is like, this is not like for me. Like this shit's not about me, I'm a vessel. So I feel like if I were to write a script, I would want it to be set up in a way where I can bring everybody on. Like I could be like, okay, I'm calling my actor friends, I'm calling my writer friends, I'm calling my producer friends. Hey, I'm calling my hairstylist, you're gonna do the hair. You know what I mean? Like I'm bringing my whole community to be involved in the project, and it wouldn't be Joe's project, it would be our project. So I know that's happening, I'm trying to manifest that. And I wanna write books at some point. But like, you know, I'm taking my time, like there's time, you know? I no longer operate on timelines. It used to be like, you know, in my 5-10 year plan. I actually really hate when they ask that in job interviews. I'm like, this is so like,
bro, I'm gonna be here for the next 5 years.
It's like, what are you gonna be doing?
Making your money. What are you talking about?
I almost want to ask it back to them.
It's
like,
generic. It's one of those generic
it's
questions.
Such a like,
there's
just like not enough thought. Like I just stop asking generic questions.
Yeah.
Like it's a very outdated generic question.
What's your 5-year plan?
I feel like that might just be a gem right there. Stop asking generic questions.
Stop asking generic questions.
It's a waste of energy, right? Because when we talk and we communicate, we are putting out energy, right? It's also why I hate small talk. Like, is this really where I want to put my energy?
What's small talk? What's small talk? For real.
How's the weather?
How's the weather?
Weather is a good one.
But it's like, is it more with people that you don't like, you have a rapport with? Like, I think that's always how I see small talk. So like, small talk about the weather, or talk about the weather isn't small talk between us.
Right.
But like if I'm talking to that guy out there right now and I'll ask him about the weather, that's small. I don't know this guy.
You're right? Spot on. Okay. I think small talk is when you're communicating with somebody and either both of you or at least one of you is not interested in intimacy. And so that's why I really struggle with it, because like I'm just not built for it. And it used to be something that I was really ashamed of. I've had people in my life that have criticized it and have been like, yo, like, please don't talk to the Uber driver. Or like, please don't have a conversation with the bartender or whatever.
What?
Like, I don't really want to hear it. And now I'm kind of like, yo, if you rolling with me, please know that is a possibility.
Bro,
that's so wild to me, because I don't see anything wrong with small talk, but that's also because I'm like an uberly
I don't
outgoing
think there's
person.
anything
But we're
wrong
connectors,
with.
that's why.
Yeah, I was gonna
okay.
say like I don't think there's anything wrong with small talk, and sometimes small talk could lead to big talk.
Right.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But if it's really more what Jeff is saying, it's really the intention behind it.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Like if you are interested in getting to know me, or you want to share your story with me, and the small talk is just it's just the approach. I can energetically feel that. From someone.
It'll evaporate.
And I can tell when
naturally
somebody
turn into it.
is just trying to avoid awkward silence. I would rather sit in silence than participate in a conversation that's going nowhere and doing nothing for both of us.
Yeah, parallel play is better than fucking awkward silence.
I win that game all the time. Like I don't mind being silent. Like it's
It's
okay.
so wild. I have the biggest issue with being silent.
It's okay. Like I think I know like silence sometimes because it's really loud and it's like
silence,
especially
ironically
if you got like the we just all talked about our wired brains right now that we're always on 1,000. When it's quiet, this shit is like
forget
on a
it.
million.
Ferrari. It
It's
sounds like a
turn
Ferrari.
up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Bruh.
It's constantly.
Yeah.
But it's
constant.
like going back to what Just was saying, like if you can be comfortable with your thoughts, the silence is actually quite nice.
be water.
I do want to share like one last piece of advice because I think Oscar
Little
would
brain
appreciate
food.
it especially.
Yeah.
I think that another piece of advice that I would give people, this is actually advice that I learned from a friend who's very spiritual, is being comfortable with like the unknown and like the ambiguous. I feel like we live in a society, going back to the fucking 5-10 year plan and like I feel like so much of what we sabotage comes from wanting to control the outcome, right? Whether it's wanting to control the outcome of that, or it's controlling our futures, right? I see it a lot with women and dating. I'm sure men do it too, but women are more vulnerable with each other about this, where it's like, no, I have to date and I need to, be actively dating and I need to date these kind of people because my biological clock is ticking and I know I want to be married and I know I want to have a kid. And then you see these people kind of self-sabotaging in their dating lives. I don't think that's how we're supposed to be living, like at all. I actually think that living is being able to be comfortable with the unknown. And I think that when you could actually arrive to that place, that's when you're actually living.
It's a very
beast.
Everything that you're saying right now, I'm just like, it's living in the ambiguity.
Yes, literally that.
It's all ambiguous.
You want to know? That's like my favorite phrase is.
It's humorous to me that we, like from a young age, are conditioned to be so obsessed with our futures. I get so triggered. And I'm not a parent, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I get so triggered when I hear parents asking, like, or even adults asking other people's kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're like 5. And I literally want to interrupt and be like, what are you doing? Let them play, right?
Yeah, word.
But that's like where it starts, right? It starts at such a young age, this need to know what our futures are going to be and to control our futures, when in reality, life is a lotto. You do not know what's going to happen. I could get hit by a car on my
Life
way
is
back
a
to
lotto.
Queens.
Yeah, it's
Alliteration is
Right?
beast.
And I'm over here, getting fixated on the future. We obsess over something that we know intellectually we have no control over.
It's that saying,
Because we
if you're
intellectually know we have no control over our futures. And yet
My
we still
favorite
try to
phrase is,
control
if you're going to live, you might as well live a little.
Yeah, like
Right?
it's true.
If you're going to live, you might as well live a little, bro. That's it. It's as simple as that, son.
That is a fact.
My whole thing is like, I also feel that like the human experience, like the soul lives on, right? Where it goes afterwards, I don't know, because I ain't religious. But the soul lives on, and I feel like your soul life in the human experience is such a small fraction of the larger picture. So it's like, okay, so I'm in this human body. Maybe I'm gonna be here for 9 years. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. Let's make the best out of it. Especially because I don't know if I'm gonna wind up being a rodent in the next life. Right? So let's enjoy this human experience.
Bro, I think fucking the universe is gonna be like, you need to chill out. And like, have y'all seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yes.
Bro,
I
you know
believe in all
the
of that.
part where they rocks? I think that's my next step.
Oh,
like,
the rocks?
I think like the universe is like, all right, you need to
hands.
chill as a rock
Oh
for
my
this
God, I
for
want to
this
be
cycle.
the hot dog hands. That shit felt weird
Yo,
watching
that was the
it.
weirdest part
That
of the movie.
shit
What, the
felt
weenie fingers?
weird
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah, man.
Such a
Glizzy
beautiful,
fingers.
it's so beautiful, yo.
Yeah,
That's
son.
such a great film.
What was it?
Yeah.
He said
love-
he was like,
yeah.
in another life, I would have loved
To do taxes and laundry, bro.
yeah, laundry and taxes. I thought that was like the most beautiful thing. Like,
Yeah,
anybody
son.
can say, bro. That shit was so beautiful.
I love that
Super
movie.
poetic movie.
But my point stands is that like I'm gonna just be a rock in my next life, and then when thunder strikes and hits me as a rock, I'll probably end up as something else cooler in the next life after that.
A polished rock.
Yeah, I'll probably end up as a polished rock or a diamond on somebody's
Have
fucking
you guys
ring.
ever gone zip lining?
Oh,
Because I feel like zip lining.
I'm triggered
zip
because
lining for the first time.
I'm too heavy to go anything like
only height-
skydiving
yeah,
or
the
zip
only heights
lining
I
and
do
stuff
is
like that.
Washington,
It's
bro.
always like, bro, we got a weight limit.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they had weight limits for that stuff. Like, I was
Yeah,
just,
for
I would
skydiving,
assume
and
it would be like,
yeah. I mean, well,
you're not that big.
eventually,
I was just gonna say you ain't that big.
Nah.
no,
Yeah.
but like there's
I think you could probably.
for stuff like that. I mean, I know I could do fucking
Yeah.
zip line, bro. But like,
zip line up.
yeah, like for a lot of those things, there's always like, yo, you got to be this in order to ride, and big people in general
I
like
think you
tend
should
to
start
not.
a whole
Yeah.
movement around that because
Nah,
I
I'm
haven't
good,
heard
bro.
that.
That is a fact.
I haven't heard that. I've heard it about the plane, but I haven't heard it.
Oh
about
yeah, but shit like this. Like
Yeah.
I'm obviously not that big,
Yeah.
but there's certain things like you can't
Like,
do
you can't
because
skydive for
yeah,
sure. Like,
exactly. There's certain
he's
things
on,
that's
like,
just like
250,
they're like, bro,
2something.
relax.
Well,
I can't. I don't even think
Sir.
I can skydive.
we're
Yeah.
gonna
Sir.
make sure that there's a place where you can zip
Yeah.
line.
Oh, there's the jungle is very ziplineable. I'm telling you, but like when it comes to like those particular things,
Ziplineable.
like those weight limits and stuff kind of not held me back, but kind of was just like maybe next time.
We'll talk.
But
But
what was the experience?
I bring up the zip lining experience because I could even, I would have used weed as an example, but I'm not doing that here.
Nah.
So I'm going to use zip lining. I feel like where I'm at in my life is similar to zip lining in the sense that I have become very comfortable with like surrendering and just flowing into the space that I'm supposed to be in. Because think about zip lining, the best zip lining experience, the one that I had, they actually didn't have us sit down. They had us like lay on our stomachs.
Like
like
Superman.
yeah.
Bees.
And I remember being like really upset about that because I was like, no, like I feel like I'll be more in control, like in the seat position. And they were
Control.
like, no, but you actually get to be present with the experience if you're in this position. Trust us,
amazing.
we know what we're talking about. Okay. And it's so true because when you're in that position, all you can do is just let go and actually enjoy the landscape. And I remember I had a moment where I was like, oh my God, this is how I want to start living my life. It's just with this freedom to not always be in control, to just, and it doesn't mean like sit on your ass and do nothing.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
no.
not what it means. Because even zip lining, I had to get up the stairs, I had to put on the
Yeah.
gear,
You have to
I
get
had
over so many
saddled
things,
up.
yeah.
I had to do something. Nobody just like took me from the ground up and put me on the zip line. You still have to do the work, but I think if you can get to a place where you just are not attached to the outcome, you're committed, but you're not attached to the outcome. I think that's how we're supposed to be living.
It's a similar thing to what Justin said about the confidence. I think like it's a convergence. Like I think it's acceptance. Like you like accept that this is like what it is. Like I'm gonna take the zip line. This is the experience I'm gonna have. I accept all of it. I welcome all of it.
Yeah.
You is like the outcome. Like the confidence part is like, no, this is accepting like what it is.
Yeah.
So this is why I don't have confidence is because I just accept shit the way that it is.
Because think about it, if you went on a zip line, right, and they put you in the seat position and you decided that you were going to control it, you're going to be so distracted with trying to control the experience, you just miss the whole
It
scene.
passes you by.
And it
Yeah.
happens so quickly.
It passed you by, and it goes very quickly. I remember being like, yo,
That's
That's it.
that's it. We did it, like, there were 3
Yo, that's
of
how it
them,
be on
but was
roller
like,
coasters.
damn, that's it. Same with roller coasters.
Like,
but
damn.
like I feel like we treat life like that when we're so obsessed with like the outcome of things, like, no, I need to land this specific job.
Yeah.
Or like I need to be married by this age, or like I'm really careful when I talk about motherhood with women in their 30s who are single and want to have kids, because I understand I'm in a different place and it's a sensitive topic. But like if you're willing to hear me out, my advice is let go of the fact that maybe you're not supposed to be a mother in that way in this human experience. And if you let go, like, you could actually be a little bit more present in your life.
And you might get the same joy that you're looking for.
Yeah, I feel like I got that joy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm so happy we did this because I'm gonna just replay this back over
this
and
is gonna
over.
Be like,
You've life coached me, by the way. This entire session was actually a life coaching session.
Thank you. This was
very
like
much
very
appreciated.
therapeutic for me, especially because I feel like I found so many like-minded people. Yeah, I want to be friends.
That's what we're here for.
Yo,
we're already friends.
Yeah, word.
Yeah.
This is what you get when you come uptown, right?
Yeah, word.
Joe, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, inspiring us, motivating us, and motivating everybody that's listening right now as well.
Let everybody know where they could follow you, where they could.
You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is cup CUP_of_Johanna JOHANNA.
Love it.
Let's go.
We'll put that at the bottom of the screen.
Right here.
Yeah.
We'll contact the art department.
It should be in the show
Contact the art
notes.
department.
Yeah, it should be in the show notes.
Yeah.
We like to make it as interactive as possible visually, you know?
Yeah, I'm the special effects team.
But thank you guys. This was great.
Oh, absolutely.
Phenomenal. What are we going to get to eat? I feel like we got to go eat something at this point.
Hungry.
I'm starving.
Bro.
Let's go do
I'm
that.
uptown. I feel like we should have Dominican.
Oh.
Let's go do that.
Hey.
Let's go do that. All right. We'll let you guys
Say
know
less.
how it was.
Yeah, word.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
again. This is the smartest guys in the room. Make sure you follow us at the smartest pod on Instagram and TikTok, and hit us up on YouTube, man. The smartest guys in the room podcast. All right.
And make sure to just listen to the music. Let the music
Yo.
take us out. Let the music take us out. Go. Awesome.